Hello, Bill. This is Tracy. I listened again to the podcast, and it made me think, when do a few offhand words, just syllables spoken that float off into the atmosphere, take a hold of someone's heart and make it rage? When do they turn calmness into boiling anger? How does that happen?
Dragon Slayer Audio.
Good evening. This is Bill Oberst Jr. Welcome to the Moonlit Library. Sometimes, late at night, I awake and hear my mother in another year and place, walking on the lawn. Still, late nights, I think I hear her soft tread and wake to see her cross the lawn, gone wild with wishing, dreaming, wanting, crouched down out there until dawn, washing her hair with the wind, paying no mind to the cold, waiting for some bold, strange man to rise up like the sun and strike her beautifully blind. And weeping, I call out to her, my mother, "Oh, young girl there, oh, sweet girl in the dawn, I do not mind. No, no, I do not mind." That's a poem by Ray Bradbury. I couldn't sleep last night, my friends. And I woke up thinking of a phrase of Ray's, something he said about autumn, and it led me to a book of his poetry and to that strange image of our dead mothers, our dead fathers, our dead friends, our dead dearly beloved, out there in the moonlight. We need each other more than anything else, I think. Why is it that the one thing we need, we turn away from? We turn away from one another. Oh God, I don't mean to preach a sermon. Let's just read a story. Sometimes that helps, doesn't it? We need fear. Why? God only knows. I don't. But it helps sometimes, doesn't it? Thank you for joining me here tonight. I want to implore you, my dear friends, I want to implore you to close your tabs and to make it quiet where you are and as dark as possible and to lie down. I know there's things to do. I know you don't really have the time to give your undivided attention. But I want to reach out my hand to you in this story. And I guess I kind of want you to be there. So close it down and lie down in your place of rest. And I'll read to you for a while, just till you're drowsy. But before, I have to ask you, if you would, to leave a comment on the darkness, a comment on the night, a comment on this show, or any previous show. There's a whole worldwide community of listeners to this little podcast, and we'd like to hear your voice. You can write to me at gothicgoodnightpodcast@gmail.com. That's gothicgoodnightpodcast@gmail.com. You can leave a voice message as an attachment to an email to gothicgoodnightpodcast@gmail.com. Or if you're old-fashioned, you can go to speakpipe.com/Bill Oberst Jr., speakpipe.com/Bill Oberst Jr., and there you'll find a way to record your voice. Let us hear from you. I think about how Ray wanted more than anything else for his books to lean shoulder to shoulder with his heroes of Halloween, and one of them was the author I have for you tonight. He's best known for his war stories, but he wrote a number of strange, chilling, and appropriate to these times tales. His name was Ambrose Bierce, and he was known during his lifetime as Bitter Bierce, a name which he did not dispute. So let's commune a while, shall we? And those who may be dancing in the moonlight out there beyond that great east wall window where you see Lady Luna just beginning to rise, let's invite them in too as we listen to Ambrose Bierce's 1890 short story. It's called The Man and the Snake. It is of veritable report, and attested of so many that there now be of wise and learned none to gainsay it, that the serpent's eye hath so magnetic a property, that whosoever falleth into the serpent's vision is drawn forwards in spite of will, and shall perish miserably by that creature's bite. Stretched at ease upon a sofa in gown and slippers, Harker Brayton smiled as he read the foregoing sentence in Old Morrister's Marvels. He said to himself, the only marvel is that the wise and learned in Morrister's day should have believed such nonsense. Musing, he lowered his book. Something in an obscure corner of the room called him back to attention. What Harker Brayton saw in the shadow under his bed were two small points of light, about an inch apart. They might have been reflections of the gas jet above him in the nail-heads of the floorboards. He gave them little thought. He resumed his reading. A moment later, some impulse impelled him to lower the book again. The points of the light were still there, seeming brighter than before, shining with a greenish luster which he had not at first observed. He thought, too, that they might have moved a trifle, that they were somewhat nearer. He resumed his reading. Suddenly, something in the text suggested a thought which made him start and drop the book to the side of the sofa, whence, escaping from his hand, it fell to the floor. Brayton Harker, half risen, was staring intently into the obscurity beneath the bed. The points of light shone, it seemed, with an added fire. His attention was fully aroused now, his gaze eager and imperative. That gaze disclosed, almost directly beneath the footrail of the bed, the coils of a large serpent. The points of light were the serpent's eyes. Its horrible head, thrust flatly forth from the innermost coil and resting upon the outermost, was directed straight towards him. The definition of the wide, brutal jaw, the flat forehead, served to show the direction of its malevolent gaze. The eyes were no longer merely luminous points. Now they looked into his own eyes with a malign significance. A snake in the bedroom of a modern city dwelling of the better sort is, happily, not so common as to make explanation needless. Harker Brayton, 35, a scholar, a bachelor, an idler, something of an athlete, rich, popular, had returned to San Francisco from adventures in remote and unfamiliar countries. His taste, always a trifle luxurious, had taken on an added exuberance from long privation, and even the Castle Hotel was inadequate for their perfect gratification, so he had gladly accepted the hospitality of his friend, Dr. Druring, the distinguished scientist. Dr. Druring's house, a large, old-fashioned one in an obscure quarter of the city, appeared to have developed some of the eccentricities which come from isolation. One of these was a wing, a combination of laboratory, menagerie, and museum. It was here that the doctor indulged the scientific side of his nature, in the study of such forms of animal life as engaged his interest and comforted his taste, which, it must be confessed, ran rather to the lower forms, toads, snakes, and the likes. His scientific sympathies were distinctly reptilian. His wife, not sharing his enlightened curiosity, had insisted upon what she called the snakery's secure isolation from the rest of the household, for many of the reptiles within had the troublesome peculiarity of being alive. Specimens of these had at rare times been found in other parts of the house, where they were wont to create obstacles to the doctor's marital happiness, if not quickly removed again to the snakery. The guest room was thus equipped with a bell, which rang in Dr. Druring's study, to discreetly advise him of any unsolicited nocturnal visitations. He had advised Harker Brayton of the bell, and indeed Harker's first thought was now to ring the bell. But although the bell cord dangled within easy reach, Harker Brayton made no movement toward it. The reptile was of a species with which he was unfamiliar. Its length he could only conjecture in the shadows. The body seemed about as thick around as his forearm. Was it dangerous? Was it venomous? Was it a constrictor? His knowledge did not enable him to say. An absurd, revolting thought snapped to his consciousness. The exhalations of the creature's breath were mingling with the atmosphere he himself was breathing. All these thoughts shaped themselves in Harker Brayton's mind, and they begot action. He rose to his feet and prepared to back softly away from the snake without disturbing it if possible, and through the door. He knew he could walk backward without obstruction and find the door without error. He thought the snake's eyes burned now with a more pitiless malevolence than before. He must act. He lifted his right foot off the floor to step backward, and at that moment he felt a strong aversion to doing so. He steadied himself with his right hand on the back of a chair, his foot suspended. "Nonsense," he said aloud. He lifted the foot a little higher and thrust it sharply to the floor. It landed an inch in front of the other foot. He tried again with the left foot, the same result. It landed not behind, but in front of the right foot. The hand upon the chair back was grasping it. The arm was straight, reaching backward, reluctant to lose hold. The snake had not moved. Harker Brayton had an ashy parlor. Again he took a step forward, and another, partly dragging the chair, which, when finally released, fell upon the floor with a crash. The man groaned. The snake made neither sound nor motion, but its eyes were two dazzling suns. The reptile itself was wholly concealed by the eyes. The eyes! The serpent's eyes gave off enlarging rings of rich and vivid colors, which, at their greatest expansion, vanished like soap bubbles. They seemed to approach Harker's very face. He heard somewhere the continual throbbing of a great drum with burst of far music, inconceivably sweet. The man thought he stood in the reeds of the river Nile, hearing through the silence of the centuries. In the middle of the river, a vast serpent, wearing a crown, reared its head and looked at him with his dead mother's eyes. Suddenly, like a falling curtain at the theater, the vision vanished, and something struck him hard on the face. He had fallen to the floor. The blood ran from his broken nose and his bruised lips. Dazed, stunned, he lay with closed eyes, his face against the door. In a few moments he recovered and realized that his fall, by withdrawing his eyes, had broken the spell which held him. He felt that now, by keeping his gaze averted, he would be able to retreat. But the thought of the serpent within a few feet of his head, unseen, and perhaps in the very act of springing upon him and throwing its coils around his throat, it was too horrible. He lifted his head. He stared again into those eyes, and he was again in bondage. The snake had not moved. The man raised the upper part of his body up on his elbows, his head thrown back, his legs extended to their full length. His face was white beneath its gouts of blood. His eyes were strained open to their uttermost expansion. There was froth on his lips. It dropped off in flakes. Strong convulsions ran through his body, making almost serpentine undulations. He bent himself at the waist, shifted his legs from side to side, and every movement left him a little nearer to the snake. He thrust his hands forward to brace himself back, yet he constantly advanced on his elbows. Downstairs, Dr. Druring sat in his small study. His wife was reading nearby. The scientist was in good humor. "I have just obtained, by exchange with another collector," he said, "a splendid specimen of the Ophiophagus." "Oh?" said his wife, with languid interest. "And what may that be, dear?" "Why, bless my soul," the doctor teased, rising in mock indignation from the study to join her in the parlor. "Such profound ignorance! A man who learns after marriage that his wife does not know Greek is entitled to a divorce." "So," said she, not looking up from her reading, "is a woman who learns after marriage that her husband prefers cold blood to warm." "The Ophiophagus," said the doctor, "is a snake which eats other snakes." "Well," she said, I hope it will eat all yours." "That, my dear," said the doctor, "is highly unlike—" The conversation was interrupted by a mighty cry which rang through the silent house like the voice of a demon shouting in a tomb. Again and again it sounded. They sprang to their feet. Almost before the echoes of the last cry had died away, they were out of the room, springing up the stairs, 2 steps at a time. They rushed at the guest room door without knocking. It was unfastened and gave way. Harker Brayton lay upon his stomach on the floor, dead. His head and arms were partly concealed under the footrail of the bed. Together they pulled the body away, turned him on his back. The face was daubed with blood and froth. The eyes were wide open, staring. "Died in a fit," said the scientist, his hand upon the heart. While in that position, he happened to glance under the bed. "Good God," he said, "how did this thing get in here?" He reached under the bed, pulled out the snake, and flung it, still coiled, to the center of the room. With a harsh, shuffling sound, it slid across the polished floor till stopped by the wall, where it lay without motion. It was a stuffed snake. Its eyes were 2 shoe buttons. His wife joined him down by the body. "Your ophiophagus?" "Yes," said the doctor. "A marvelous specimen. Don't you think?" "There. That's better. Strangely, I feel no sympathy for Harker. Do you? Or you can let me know. Why does it feel so good to be scared together? Fictionally, I mean. I guess we all need someone to be beside us when we look under the bed. Into those eyes, those mesmerizing eyes, the eyes that belong to the thing which seizes us and will not let us go and makes us act against our will, the eyes of that thing, which may, if we can turn away, prove to be only shoe buttons. Time to sleep now. I hope you'll leave me a comment, a word, a thought. And I hope you'll sleep tonight as soundly as a stuffed snake. Quiet now. Quiet. The books are all back on the shelf now. The moon is dipping down below the horizon. The last rays falling on the stone floor of this grand and gracious old place. The fires may be burning somewhere, but we've extinguished ours for the night. This old library keeper in this old library on the edge of a forest, on the edge of a precipice, on the edge of the world, wishes you deep sleep, sweet dreams. You're not alone. And remember, it's always midnight somewhere. Good night.